Cooperation Organization Secretary General Deemah AlYahya, GSMA Director General Vivek Badranath, and Nigerian Minister of Communications, Innovation, and Digital Economy, the Honorable Dr. Bosun Tijani, for a conversation with FP's Rishi Iyengar.
Great. Thank you all for joining. Really looking forward to this panel and an important and timely discussion here at UNGA. We're talking about digital inclusion and the role of AI and kind of the impact that the AI development has on that landscape. Secretary General, I'd love to start with you. The organization you lead was created to very specifically address these questions. So can you just give us a sense of the landscape, even before we get to AI, in terms of just connectivity and access to technology? What does that look like right now, and where are the biggest gaps that you see around the world?
Well, first, thank you for having us. In the past decade, we have been working on bridging digital divide. And the more that we are moving in time, the more digital importance is becoming unbeatable. So now it's becoming a lifeline of how we live, we do business, and how we communicate. So it's as important as water and electricity. But unfortunately, we're not bridging that gap. The gap is increasing. And now with AI being introduced, we're looking at a new divide, which is the AI divide. So in a time where last year alone, investments in AI was $300 billion, only a handful of countries were involved in that investment. And that sends a message is that, well, who's going to benefit from these? Who's going to use that technology if 2.8 billion people still do not have accessibility to the internet? And they're off-grid completely. And then when we look at bridging that gap, which is going to take more than $2 trillion, we're going to look at affordability of devices, as well as the affordability, availability, adoption, and also cybersecurity. So the landscape of digital divide is increasing in terms of availability as well as affordability. And with the AI, introducing these AI capabilities, that divide is increasing.
Dr. Tijani, I wanted to get your perspective of what it looks like in Nigeria, and as the economy minister, how do you focus on ensuring that the development of this technology within your country and that the dispersion of it is sort of equitable and people aren't getting left behind?
Thank you so much. I think we should probably take stock of where we are, which is probably why we should give GSMA and your members a round of applause for. Please do a round of applause for GSMA and all the telcos for.
And we still have a lot to do.
for the work they've done.
Not too early.
Yeah, no, I think if you look at Nigeria, for instance, telecommunication services is reaching about 92% of our people, basic telecommunication services. But in terms of broadband, I think we're still under 50%. And I think what that has done to economies, probably in the last, particularly our side of the world, in the last 10 to 20 years, is that we've been able to demonstrate how digital technologies can help leapfrog development and improve competitiveness. Which is a long-standing challenge for developing countries. You want to be more productive in your critical sector. But the challenge we're seeing at the minute, however, is this significant shift that is happening. That I think perhaps we're talking about it, but the framing is not strong enough to help us understand the urgency that is behind it. So when you look at the changes that artificial intelligence is about to bring to the world, the gaps that we're talking about in digital inclusion is actually going to change completely. Because it's going to be a totally different story. And I like to use the analogy of farmers. If you've been to many of the places where I've spoken, this is what I always use as an example. We consume a lot of maize in Nigeria. We feed our animals, livestock also feeds from maize. And the average maize farmer in Nigeria will get 2.5 tons from 1 hectare of land. The highest on the African continent is from South Africa, which is about 5 to 6 tons per hectare of land. There are farms in Brazil. I visited one about maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. There are farms in Brazil that are already doing between 10 to 12 tons per hectare. And it's not GMO. It's precision farming, it's connectivity, it's knowing where the seed is going, where the herbicide is going, and things like that. So that's going to have significant implication for the world, because it will mean that despite the fact that Nigeria is probably one of the most youthful countries in the world, and agriculture is a major sector, that Nigeria will be better off importing maize from Brazil, because there's no way Nigeria can be competitive. So that's the level of change that this new form of technology is bringing to society. And I know people often talk about the fact that we should participate so that we're not just consumers. The reality is that we don't even have the absorptive capacity to consume. We don't have the absorptive capacity to consume it. And this is the future challenge for GSMA and your members. Because if a continent like Africa is not moving away from being mobile first, there's absolutely no way we're going to participate in AI. The young people that will build AI applications will not build it on their phones. They're not going to build it on mobile-based connectivity. We need fiber optic network that is ubiquitous and that can reach every part of the country. We need affordable devices, which is not just phone. And it's not about moving to cloud phone. It's about moving to the sort of devices that people need to participate. We need academic institutions that understand and are participating in helping to ensure that AI can work for us. And we need regulations as well that is opening up significant aspect of our economies for AI to participate. So the urgency to reimagine what we invest in, the talent that we need to truly appropriate AI, it's not something that we have time. We actually have to go after it really, really quickly.
Right. So just one quick follow-up. You said we need regulations. How are you thinking about bringing those regulations in the Nigerian context? And when you say we need regulations, are you talking about more kind of global multilateral regulation?
I think positive forward-looking regulation is what I'm talking about, because this phenomenon is moving so fast, and too fast for most governments, actually, let's be honest. And the implication is that government is not in a position to truly regulate it. When I was appointed, what we did was actually we used AI to identify all the Nigerians in the world working in AI. So at the ministry, we know where they are. Yeah, because we downloaded all the academic publications on artificial intelligence. We use a name library to find them, and we know exactly who they are, where they are. And we brought 150 of them to Nigeria to help us design our national AI strategy. So that's the sort of thinking, because AI cannot just be managed by public leadership only. You need technical leadership, because most public leaders don't have an understanding of this phenomenon we're talking about. I have a bit of technology background, but I can't tell you that I fully understand the details. So we need to bring those technical people with clear understanding into the loop, and as we build our regulations. And I think the best way to also do that is to collaboration. So countries with clear understanding, we need to come together to ensure that we're actually front-loading the important things, that nations understand what they should prioritize. For instance, when we talk about large language model and inclusion, countries like ours shouldn't leave it to just come in to say inclusion is important. What are we doing about driving inclusion? We may not have access to GPU, but are we ensuring that AI can speak our language? We can do that. We can collect data. We can help train large language model. We've seen countries like Iceland that thought we're too small to start building our own thing and keeping it inside. And they worked with OpenAI to open it up. And they collected their data. Now they're sure that OpenAI models can speak their language and understand their nuances. Nigeria, just a few days ago, we just open sourced our large language model. It's the first government back on the African continent. Because we've looked at it that if we don't do that, we're going to get caught up in the competition around sovereignty and geopolitics. But the real conversation is, are we also focusing on the absorptive capacity for AI to help us drive productivity in our country? Those are two conversations. Both are important. But if you get sucked into who owns what and sovereignty, the reality is that you're actually not going to be consumer at all because you won't have the absorptive capacity to use AI locally.
Right. Vivek, I wanted to bring you in. Your organization, as we've discussed already, has a lot of convening power on the private sector, but also on the public side. How do you approach sort of getting these companies to not necessarily abandon their kind of profit motives, but look at the question itself differently of who accesses their technology and how that access is distributed?
I think our industry, I mean, we've done a bit of a job of connecting 5.8 billion people, and the job is not over. I do share the minister's optimism that AI is indeed a transformational technology. We recently did a piece of work on trying to drive innovation in AI for development. So as I would say an RFP, 90 projects. And some of them, I mean, precision agriculture, the education space, health space, these are all areas where AI is not a luxury. AI is actually part of the answer. And these are solutions that come from the African continent and come through innovators who have looked at new business models. So I'd say AI is not a luxury, but for that AI, which is not a luxury, to be available to everyone, we need to finish the job on the usage gap. And I think without dampening the optimism, we still have 3.1 billion people for which we have built networks. So they're under coverage. They have. So I'm not even talking about those who are in remote areas where additional investment will be required and where proper models will need to be designed and where governments and operators are having dialogues where if you relax a bit the competition rules, you let operators cooperate, you can still continue to extend the available networks, bring fiber to them, and start to connect schools and start to connect localities and communities. But I'm talking about the 3 billion people, 3.1 billion people out of the 3.4 who are not connected, who actually have a signal. And there we look at the root causes of their being unconnected. And what do we find? First one, super mundane, very simple, smartphone accessibility. And so you're talking of a $40 device that would change the perspective. And so how do we ensure that we're able to make $40 devices? And we have the Affordable Handset Coalition together with many of our partners, including the ITU and a number of both operators and equipment manufacturers. We need to get that done. That's the first step. And we need to find the financing models that enable daily wage earners to be able to buy a $40 device on credit. Doesn't look like the most difficult task that the planet has to face, but it's taking a lot of time. Other factors that hinder the adoption and drive this usage gap, relevant content. And there, what the minister said is absolutely the heart of the question. You can put in as many devices as you want, if it's not in your language, or if it's not, or if it's written and you can't read, you miss the point. And then there is no reason for a daily wage earner to spend 18% or 20% of their income to buy a device that they can't use. The initiative that Nigeria just announced on the large language model that you put on Hugging Face, so as a common good, is one of the directions that we should fully embrace. I think we've reached the point where teaching a language to the LLMs is a common good. It's so the operator community has been working on this. I'm hoping that some of the initiatives they're already sharing. They're putting them out there because there's much more to be earned from training models that then can be used for inference by others than of keeping it as a competitive advantage for just one company. So language is super important, and I think a big direction of travel. And the third one is, of course, training. Training, and here I'm talking training of people who are not yet connected. I think we still have a lot to do in that area so that they can understand, not be too scared, avoid scams, learn how to carefully use their devices so that no negative consequences occur. So I think that's our usage gap program. And we have a very strong commitment from the whole industry on this.
Secretary General, I wanted to ask, in your position, kind of looking at the cross-section of this, who do you think bears that burden and that, or that responsibility, rather? Where does it lie between the wealthier countries pulling up maybe the countries that don't have the same level of resources, the private sector? There are, as we've discussed earlier today, like a few companies that are really dominating the landscape of really developing these technologies. Is it governments? Is it sort of civil society? Where do you see that responsibility coming from? And or if it's shared, then how do you see it being shared?
Well, I do really believe that it is an ecosystem drive. Governments, private sector, civil society, and financial institutions together. The thing is that to bridge that gap and to find these solutions to level the playing field and balance, it's by disrupting multilateralism, looking at it from a different perspective, while the driver should be target-oriented and looked at in a way where what's the role of each part of that ecosystem. In DCO, we are looking at it being that platform that brings in all of the parties of the to drive and accelerate digital economy growth. And I'll give an example with AI, since we're talking about that. We're looking at a huge AI divide, not only a digital divide, but an AI divide. The countries that we represent are very diverse. And this is where we believe that when it comes to digital economy specifically, there's no one size fits all. Each country has its competitive advantage. The thing is that how do we identify what is that competitive advantage and how that competitive advantage could be a solution for a challenge for another country? And this is where we looked at AI in four main perspectives. First is identifying the need, the readiness of a country when it comes to AI. Is it going to be a consumer? Is it going to be a producer, an enabler, empowerer? So we have to identify that role that the country can contribute. The second is sharing and cooperating in terms of policies and regulations. Why should we reinvent the wheel? If something is working in a country and can be adopted in another, let's bridge that communication gap and let's make it closer and share the regulation and governance frameworks with one another. The third thing is infrastructure. And this is where it's really important. We have assessed all our member states and we were looking at where is the investment. We have countries that are putting a lot of investment in infrastructure, but the thing is they lack other elements, like for instance, brainpower. They lack governance frameworks. They lack ease of doing business as well when it comes to digital trade and investment. And this is where we worked on an AI governance framework where we capitalize on the capabilities of the infrastructure of countries, like for instance the Gulf, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Kuwait, while giving accessibility of that infrastructure to countries like Pakistan, Jordan, Morocco, and also Africa. Like Nigeria, and we're very blessed to have our member state here with us, one of our member states, our first African country to actually join DCO. And last but not least, which is skills. Making sure that we're creating a task force and a talent pool from within our member states to expand very freely from one country to another. So not necessarily all the countries have the same knowledge and the capabilities. And this is what we're creating, mobility for these talents to expand and to capitalize on the infrastructure in countries. I'll give one example. of, for instance, Pakistan. 2 months ago, we've celebrated attracting more than $700 million to Pakistan because we assessed where does that investment go. And that data we provided to the private sector. So we bridged that gap and we made the investment in AI faster and we accelerated it.
Right. I wanted to ask you another question on something that Vivek brought up earlier, which is mitigating some of the harms that come from this kind of connectivity. I mean, I grew up in India, and I've reported from India. What happens a lot with kind of access to technology? You look at something like broad access to WhatsApp, for instance. There's a lot of the digital literacy gap where misinformation is an issue, and AI just kind of supercharges that. How do you combine the efforts to get people connected with letting them know somehow that not everything they see online is necessarily real or true?
Oh, true. Definitely. And that's why it was on the priorities of our member states, is that while we're bridging that divide between the countries, that we create a safeguard internet for our generations to come. We do represent 800 million in population as DCO, and 75% of that population is under the age of 30. So you would have very tech-savvy population, and I call them the innovators of the future. And we will have to make sure that they have accessibility to the right data as well, and credible data. And this is where we launched a ministerial council that looks at misinformation and compact and fake news. And we're working on now AI, or using AI to identify as well misinformation. But also we're working on standards with the private sector, where they are part of the discussion that would come to agreements between that private sector and the governments to work together to make the internet safer.
Oh, did you want to add something?
No, yeah. just to say, I think in the matter of scams as well as the matter of effective use of AI, I think it is a collective. Everybody needs to play their part. If you look at scams, the banks have to play their part. Operators have to support and give as much as they can to avoid these events. And the platforms also have to do their own part. So it's everybody needs to be happy to help. And indeed, not putting it on one party rather than the others is, I think, getting everybody to feel responsible is important. As an industry, we've launched a responsible AI framework as well, recognizing these forthcoming risks. They're still not completely prevalent, but for once, let's catch it before the bad news hits. 50 operators have already signed the responsible AI framework, and they're putting it in place, and it includes governance, it includes testing, it includes proof of results, and I think these are good practices that we need to continue to work on, and I think it's important to put these in place quickly.
Minister, what does that conversation look like in Nigeria of sort of mitigating those harms and the digital literacy gap that we just spoke about?
I think digital literacy is, for me, is actually the beginning, both skills and literacy of preventing harms of this technology. Like if you have a pool of people that are using a set of technologies that they don't really know much about, I'm sure we can all relate to probably our grannies, our granddads on Facebook and the kind of things they push. I think it's a function of knowledge, literally, which is why we understand that part of the absorptive capacity for Nigeria will be a workforce that can help us apply it really smartly. That's why we're training 3 million technical talent. It's the largest technology talent accelerator program anywhere in the world. But we also have an aggressive target to get digital literacy up to 70% of our 240 million people, just so that people can have clarity in terms of what they're doing with the technology. We've worked with UNESCO, for instance, on ethics, understanding what we need to put in place, assessing what's on ground and what we need to improve. So we think it's evolving. It's evolving. But I think as the world is talking about this thing, let's also be clear that the opportunities for companies to still not do the right things is high because of the competition around the AI. Everyone is focused on who's going to get there first. and that's ongoing. We shouldn't deceive people that most of the content you put on social media are not being used to train AI models. I think for those who use X, you probably know that that's the fact. Your content is being used, whether you agree to that or not. So I think for me, true protection for society will come from clarity, every nation knowing exactly where they stand. And that's why I think as much as we should be sharing regulations, we don't want nations to just copy and paste regulations. It's actually going to be much more dangerous than we can imagine. Because it's very highly technical, there's a temptation that if something has been done that is great in Nigeria, if I'm a neighboring country, I can just copy that. The danger is when you copy without asking deep questions about what AI means for your context, you're not going to be coming up with the best understanding of how to protect your people from it. We're all different. We have unique nuances that are important. And we need to understand that the beauty of AI is diversity. The ability of AI to truly understand all of us is what makes it a good technology. So every nation must be encouraged to get in. The last point on this is how many countries will just willingly outsource their defense to other countries? That's how you need to think about it. Like the thinking around your defense. Only a few countries will do that for obvious reasons. Greenland, maybe to Denmark, for clear reasons, right? But they don't. It's not a decision you take without thinking thoroughly about it. You've thought of it. So that's the same level. AI is at the defense level. This is something that is going to literally control everything in your nation. So don't just copy the document that has been produced by someone and say that's also our own strategy. Ask deep questions.
Right. Well, an important discussion on a noble mission. So that's all the time we have. Thank you so much to our panel. Please join me in giving them a round of applause.
And now, please welcome